the doctors who are treating coronavirus patients, they have the medical expertise to determine whether or not they should prescribe hydroxychloroquine.
And many of them do.
And there are already clinical trials in place looking at hydroxychloroquine.
Sure.
So
they should be finished in about a year.
Why not just let the science speak for itself? Why are you promoting this drug?
I'm not. I'm just saying very simply, I'm not at all. I'm not. Look, you know what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to save lives.
You come out here every day, right, sir, talking about the benefits of hydroxychloroquine.
I want them to try it, and it may work and it may not work. But if it doesn't work, it's nothing lost by doing it, nothing. Because we know long-term what I want to save lives.
Beverly Hallberg, that is a perfect example of almost a daily, relentless media narrative pushing back directly with the president and also commentary on the air over and over again about this discussion of hydroxychloroquine will kill people when, in fact, we now have learned, in fact, it appears quite the opposite. Peter Navarro was working in the White House at that time. In fact, you were the Director of Trade and Manufacturing Policy and the National Defense Production Act policy coordinator, which meant you were in charge of ramping up American manufacturing in response to the pandemic. And, sir, you've mentioned now that included hydroxychloroquine. And I need you to explain exactly what we know now, what we knew then, and how many lives could have been saved.
Larry, one of my great failures at the White House was trying to overcome that false narrative about hydroxychloroquine. I want to tell you this first. I was directly in charge of over 60 million tablets of hydroxychloroquine, and I desperately wanted to get them into the hands of people for early treatment use on an outpatient basis to doctors. Those more than 60 million tablets would have been enough for 4 to 5 million Americans for a treatment course. And based on the statistics we see now, as well as at the time, Larry, we knew this would save lives. There would be probably 50,000 Americans alive today who were killed by the virus and the media.
That is
every one of those people, every one of those reporters who went after the president on this drug failed to do what I had done, which is to read over 50 studies of the possible effective therapeutic and prophylactic use of this drug. There's blood on those people's hands, Larry, and now we're seeing it all. And Fauci, I want to tell you this. The Situation Room is hallowed ground at the White House, Larry, hallowed ground. And I met that SOB in the Situation Room at a meeting with the task force with Vice President Michael Pence present. And I went head-to-head with that SOB and not the Vice President, I'm talking about Fauci now. I went head-to-head with him, and all he said kept repeating over and over again, there's only anecdotal evidence. And I slapped down over 100 pages worth of scientific studies in front of that little twerp, and he just kept holding his line. And here's the punchline, Larry. He did everything possible to stop the use of hydroxychloroquine, including pressuring one of the weakest bureaucrats I've ever met, Steve Hahn, who was the commissioner of the FDA. Hahn, Janet Woodcock at the FDA, Anthony Fauci, and that media basically participated in what we now believe, based on all of this evidence, was effectively the negligent homicide of probably over 50,000 Americans.
And Peter, let me jump in here. You're making bold claims. Why do you think they did this? So what is the root of it? Is it just that they didn't like Donald Trump? Was there money involved? What is the reason for this? The whole game here, the strategic game of the Democrats, Fauci being one of them, was basically to drown Donald Trump in the pandemic. Okay, the only way they could beat him was to blame him and not communist China. Okay, so the twin narratives here is like Fauci basically had worked with the Wuhan lab and gave them money, gave them mission to use this gain-of-function experiments to create what is the killer virus today, right? But there's no way they wanted to blame China, because that meant you couldn't blame Trump. And the hydroxychloroquine, I put hydroxy hysteria, it became kind of a knee-jerk reaction of the media that somehow that better not use that. Trump's a liar. Trump's a liar. And look, I think like CNN, Jeff Zucker. Okay, he's another one that I think we really have to hold accountable for this. I mean, he made a conscious corporate decision to take down Donald Trump using information warfare any means necessary. And all of his reporters, John Berman, Chris Kwon, all those guys fell into line, and they refused to blame China for the pandemic. We now know that virus came straight out of that lab and it was weaponized. And they refused to allow the American people to save their own lives using hydroxychloroquine because it did not fit into their narrative. So I'm glad you raised this today, Larry and Beverly. You will see more and more and more evidence. By the way, a full third of the world aggressively uses hydroxychloroquine as a treatment, both for a therapy and prophylaxis. Don't forget, prophylaxis is important. What I mean by that is, if you're a frontline defender, a doctor, a nurse, a first responder, and you're going into a hot zone, right? If you take hydroxychloroquine before that, what it does effectively, there's what we call a blocking effect. It helps you ward off the spike proteins from the virus that come in and penetrate your cells. This is all well-known science dating back to a 2005 article in the Journal of Virology. And these people, I'm telling you, they're negligent homicide.
I vividly remember you on a regular basis saying just that a year ago and well into through the year and through the pandemic, Peter Navarro, and it can't be said enough. And you've said a mouthful here, and we're out of time. But I so appreciate you joining us, and I have a feeling this story ain't going away.
Thanks for bringing the topic up.
You bet.
It ain't going away.
It's not going away, and I think that your words right here today on WMAL is going to amplify it that much more. Thank you, sir, so much for joining us.
Beverly, Larry, take care.
You bet. Serious stuff there.